Dwindling Elves here, and welcome to Game 2 of Chaosludik. So again, this is a 2,500 point game against an Empire opponent who has Ogre Allies, 500 points of Ogre Allies. So in the Magic phase, I have the Lore Master of Hoth, the Book of Hoth, as well as my Warrior Priest. He has a level 4 of Life, who rolled Flesh to Stone, Throne of Vines, Regrowth, and Dwellers. So yeah, the 4 spells you want there. Then you get a level 1 of Shadow, which give him the strength debuff. I don't know, I think it's called the Withering, or I'm not sure which one it was. It was the strength debuff that remains in play. And then he also had a level 1 with the Ogre lore, and he rolled a 6, which is like a terrible spell for ogres, so he took Stubborn, but it never came into play. So this scenario, your units were given, your army was given 5 objective tokens, and they had to be assigned to your detachment, and you couldn't give them to characters. So he ended up putting 3 in his ogre unit, and he has a saber tusk behind that tower that's carrying 2 objectives. And I have I gave 2 to my cannon and 3 to my inner circle knights. And it turns out that all that matters at the end of the game is whether you have control of these objectives. Now, me and my opponent, neither of us knew that. We thought the objectives gave you points, and then the victory points would be another part of that. And we found out at the end of the game when we scored it that all that mattered was objective. So it actually ended up affecting the game and the way that we played, but neither of us knew it, so yeah. So here's his deployment. He's got a Hellblaster with an Engineer on the top left. It's hidden behind that building. And he's got his level 1 of Shadow, 4 Demigryph Knights, the Hurricanum, and then he's got a big bus of Inner Circle Knights, and he's got 3 characters in there. He's got his level 4 Life with the Stubborn Crown. I think there's a Dispel Scroll in there as well. He's got the Warrior Priest, and he's got a BSB. Then he's got a Steam Tank. Behind his Steam Tank, it's hard to see, he's got his cannon. He's hiding his Saber Tusk behind the tower. And then he's got a unit of 7 Iron Guts with his level 1 Butcher, and his Butcher has the Hell Heart. So here's my deployment. On the far side, I put, oh, and he also has a unit of 5 regular knights behind that big building on the left. You can't really see them. So I put my knights in front of them, and they're carrying all 3 objectives. Next to them, I have my Sea Guard, and there's a bolt thrower in between the knights and the Sea Guard. My BSB is in with the Phoenix Guard. Then I have my White Lions, and my flank is being anchored by that building. A bolt thrower, and then a cannon behind my lines with 2 objective tokens. And then I have an Eagle and my Silver Helms on this side, and their whole purpose is going to be to go after that cannon, as well as the 2 points that are being controlled by that Saber Tusk behind the building. So he gets turn 1, and he doesn't move up, which really surprised me, because I thought, maybe I had him outranged. So he has the Hellblaster, a cannon, and the Steam Tank. But he doesn't move up at all, which also meant he was out of range for Dwellers. So I kind of liked that. I thought, that was a good start to the game, for me at least. And then he misfired with his Steam Tank and took a wound. And his Steam Tank couldn't do anything, or it could only shoot 24 inches. But it's still able to actually shoot at my guys, because, the max range plus then the bounce and then the bounce again. In the Magic phase, he gets, it's Enfeebling, I think. So he reduces my strength by 2 on the Phoenix Guard, and I let it go because I'm like, oh, well, I don't care. These guys aren't going to be in combat anytime soon. So I just let it go, and yeah. And he also gets Throne of Vines off on his level 4's unit, and he moves up his ogres a bit as well. They're coming straight at me because he wants to Hellheart me. So High Elf's turn 1. I fly the Eagle up, and he can see both the Saber Tusk and the cannon. Yeah, they're both being obscured by the building, but he can see. And the Silver Helms are coming up behind him as quickly as possible as well. They want to get behind his lines and cause some mayhem there. And I reformed the Inner Circle Knights. They had actually got shot by the Hellblaster. I didn't take a picture of it. I was really bad with pictures this game, so you'll have to bear with me. So they took 4 wounds, they passed their panic test, but I reformed them and walked them away from the Hellblaster so that he couldn't shoot me the next turn. And then in my Magic phase, I don't really get a lot off, and I I don't really think about it, but I don't dispel the enfeebling foe, so the minus 2 strength on my Phoenix Guard, because I really, figured whatever, they're not in combat anytime soon. And I get the one spell I do get off is a 2d6 fireball on the cannon, and I put 2 wounds on it. Then my cannon shoots at his cannon and misses. The rest of my shooting really doesn't do anything either. So Empire turn 2, he starts to move up with his army. He rushes the ogres up as quickly as possible, and his steam tank turns around to shoot at my eagle. And then this is where enfeebling foe and dwellers, for whatever reason, I didn't see it coming. Now I think I'm a better player than this, and I don't know, I just had a complete mental lapse and just didn't think about this. When I knew he had dwellers, and I figured he would always be going after my white lines because I've got my characters in there. But yeah, he dwellers this unit, and I mean, it's my own fault. I could have easily dispelled enfeebling foe on my turn. So yeah, I end up losing my BSB, and all I'm left with is 5 Phoenix Guards. So this unit is pretty much taken out of the game turn 2. Yeah, it's my own fault for not seeing this coming. Those are stupid on my part. In his shooting phase, his cannon shoots at my cannon and one-shots it off the board. So we go to High Elf turn 2. So I charge my white lines into his iron guts, and there's 3 points in that unit, so I know I'm just absolutely going to eat him. Actually, roll pretty decent for the magic phase, but again, he uses the Hellheart, and I end up losing dice and don't actually end up casting anything. And additionally, my eagle he charged the Saber Tusk. The Saber Tusk runs off the board because he doesn't want anything to do with the eagle, so he drops those 2 points. And then the eagle redirects in the cannon and makes the successful charge. So that cannon's on 1 wound, so it should be easy pickings for my eagle. Then I also turn my Phoenix Guard around to claim the 2 objectives that the cannon had dropped in the previous turn when it was destroyed. And on the other side, I reform my knights to face his knights. I'm behind a wall and at long range, so his Hellblaster is going to need 6s to shoot me, so I'm not really worried about that. I'm not really worried about his knights charging me either, because he's going to have to take some dangerous terrain tests there. But my flank is exposed to those demigryphs, and I really didn't think about that, but they're still pretty far away. Yeah, that's just another picture of that. So in the magic phase, he uses the Hellheart, and so I run up rolling a 7, so everyone in base contact takes a strength 10 hit. I have the Banner of the World Dragon, so I don't take any damage, and he actually ends up taking a wound on his Butcher. Then this is a picture of my Eagle epically failing, so he gets 2 attacks and a stomp and does no damage. He has the charge, but his cannon sticks, which is unfortunate, because now he could potentially turn his steam tank around, but we measured it out, and he wouldn't be able to run into the building, or he'd have to stay an inch away from the building, and he wouldn't actually get into me. And then yeah, so after combat, the white lines absolutely eat the iron guts. They're on Snake Eyes to rally, and I take those 3 objective points, which is really nice for me. So Empire turn 3, he charges his regular knights into my inner circle knights, and he loses 1 on the dangerous terrain on the way in. And then his demigryphs try to flank charge me, but I think they needed a 7 or an 8, and they missed it, which was lucky for me. Because yeah, if those demigryphs got into my flank at that point, I'd be absolutely done. So the rest of his turn, he moves up his steam tank as far as possible to get towards me. He moves up his knights as well. And then in this combat here, what he ends up doing to me in the magic phase, I didn't have a picture of it, but he dwellers my white lions, and I think I have to take 25 tests. And I lose, I think, about 14. I rolled way above average, and I lost half of my unit, essentially, on that. So they're pretty much out of the game. They're combat ineffective. They can't deal with the steam tank or the rest of his knights, because, I mean, they do have the Stubborn Crown, so even if I charge and win, he's most likely not going to break. and then I'll get flanked by the steam tank, and I will eventually lose that. So yeah, so the knights hold. We do 1 wound to each other, but my guys hold. So then High Elf turn 3, I take my eagle and I pick up the 2 objective tokens that the Saber Tusk dropped, and I fly my eagle the hell away. He's just going to be hiding in the corner the rest of the game. And my Silver Arms actually charge the Iron Guts, I believe, this turn, and catch them, so I get those points, but it ends up not mattering because victory points don't matter. And what I did is I reformed my white lines, I turned them around, and walked them into the building. I figure if I'm in the building, his shooting isn't going to do as much to me, because he only does d6 hits with each of the template weapons, and his knights, if they do charge me, they have to get off their horses, so they'll only have 3-up armor saves instead of 1-ups. And yeah, and his steam tank can't charge me if I'm in the building as well, because it's chariot. So right now I'm playing hide and seek because my army has been dwellers beyond the point that I can actually fight. So I just gotta preserve those points and really just hide the rest of the game. And in my magic phases at this point, I get roll pretty low each time. I think at the most I got was 6 dice, and I'm just throwing 6 through a dice at the signature spell from metal. But he's either dispelling it or I'm failing the cast each time, so it's not my magic phases are non-existent at this point, or they're not achieving anything. So Empire turn 4. So the knights keep grinding out. It's just a pillow fight there. We both have 1-up armor saves. I have slightly more attacks, but he's making his 2-ups and I'm making my 2-ups. His demigryphs charge into the Sea Guard, who had shot at him previously, as well as my bolt throwers. I'm not getting any wounds through. And he actually takes a couple of wounds from the dangerous terrain test and loses a full guy. So the dangerous terrain did what my guys couldn't, but I'm really hoping that all I can do is just grind these guys out and delay them. I know I'm going to lose that fight eventually. It just comes down to how many steadfast 8s I roll. And then he moves his knights up as far as possible, and he moves his steam tank up against the building so he can shoot at it with his cannon and his flame template. So after combat, I lose a couple of guys, but I'm steadfast and I hold, and he regains a wound from casting War of Life spells. I'm not sure which ones he cast. He has still been dwellersing my white lines in the building, so he's slowly whittling them down. I started with 29. At the end of the game, I'll be left with 2. So the shooting isn't doing much, but it's just his magic phases are absolutely eating my units. And in the combat phase, my knights actually end up breaking his. I do a wound to him, and his standard breaks automatically, so he's with 1 guy left. And I choose not to pursue because I'll be potentially out of line of sight of his Hellblaster the next turn, which I'm going to try to charge. So on my turn, I reform my knights, and I need a 9, but I've got the steel standard. So I get to reroll ones. I do end up rolling 1-1 and re-rolling it, but I fail the charge, and that's just, this was a huge gamble on my part, and it didn't pay off, because now his Hellblaster can absolutely eat my unit. I may have been better off turning these guys around and running them away from his army into the corner, but then he could still potentially do damage to me with his demigryphs, so maybe it's slightly played poorly by me. I probably should have just hit these guys. And I'm not sure what this is a picture of. My knights are up on the top, my eagle is hiding. And it shows you that my Phoenix Guard have taken the 2 objectives and they're conga lining it towards behind the objective. I probably should have ran the other way with them because now it's an easy charge into them with the knights. But I was worried that if my spearmen broke, then I wouldn't get away either, so I think they were just doomed to fail. Yeah, and I think at this point, you can see my white lions are on the other side of that building. I'm down to 2 guys and the 2 characters, so they've just been absolutely getting destroyed by shooting and magic. So these guys, my Silver Helms hold for another turn. Or, sorry, not my Silver Helms, my Sea Guard hold, they're slowly being ground down, and they actually did 2 more wounds to him, but not enough to kill a guy. But I know I'm going to lose that eventually, it's just how long does it take. And Empire turn 5, he charges my Phoenix Guard with his Knights, and he charges the Hurricanum, he uses that to charge the Bolt Thrower. So I expect to lose both of those units. Then the Magic Phase, he redraws this unit. I let it go through. I don't think it's going to change the outcome of the game. I know these guys are going to they're just going to grind down my Spearmen eventually. Yeah, in the shooting phase, yeah, my gamble didn't pay off. He shoots at me and absolutely destroys the unit. I think he got something like 24 hits. I think hitting on 3s or 4s because he has an engineer, and yeah, that's to be expected. I think I still have a 4-up armor save, but he just did so many wounds. So I drop all those objectives. And here my Spearmen are very heroic and actually stick. So they bought me one more turn. And yeah, so the Phoenix Guard, he actually did very few wounds to me, and I think I got 1 or 2 wounds through to him. So I ended up being on a 7 with a run of a BSB, and I broke and I ran off the board. So he collects those 2 bottle caps. So right now, I have 5 objectives, and he has 2 of mine, and 3 of mine are just sitting out in the open. And they reform because on his turn 6, they're going to charge the building. And yeah, so high off turn 5, the last of the Spearmen finally died. But they held him up long enough, and it actually they end up contributing to the game, which we'll see in the next turn. So I didn't take a picture of my turn 6, or my turn 5 actually. So I made a mistake here. What I should have done is taken the White Lions, just the 2 remaining characters, and walked them out of the building and past this unit so nothing could charge me. And then I could have actually, if I'd read the scenario properly, I could have left, and I could have put my Warrior Priest in front of the Knights so that they couldn't do anything but charge him. And it would have meant that I lost my Warrior Priest, but I would have saved all the other points, and I would have held the objectives. But the way it happened is I stayed in the building and I took the chance. He gets regrowth off on his Knights in the Magic Phase, but he charges them in. So he has 4 Knights against my 2 White Lions. I kill all of his Knights before he strikes. So I put as many attacks on them as possible. So all that he has left is characters, and characters can't hold these objectives. So he ends up dropping those 2. Then he puts his attacks on my White Lions and kills both of my White Lions, so I end up dropping 3. So it's a good move on his part because I lose 3, he loses 2. And then he also kills my Warrior Priest, and my Lore Master actually breaks. He fails the Stubborn 9 and walks out of the building. But it doesn't affect anything because I just rally him on my turn. But the big thing on top of the screen is his Demigryphs reform and then they test a march and they fail their march test, which means they can't get to those 3 objectives. Which means at the end of the game, because everything is mostly dead and all these objectives are laying around, there are 8 of them out in the open, and we split the points for that. And there are 2 that my Eagle is carrying. So I have 2 objectives, and I end up winning the game 15-10 because all that matter in this game are objectives and not victory points. So the Eagle literally won me the game because I had 2 objectives and the rest were all split in half. Which really surprised me because I really got my butt kicked this game. My auxiliary units performed really well again for me, the Eagle and the unit of 6 Knights. So the Knights caught the Ogres, and the Eagle scored those 2 points, killed the cannon, got rid of the Saber Tusk, and actually ended up being the MVP in this game. Magic really destroyed me this game. So my White Lions and my Phoenix Guard were pretty much out of the game the entire time. Partly due to my own mistake, and this Empire army, had a lot of magic. He was throwing 5 dice at channels each. He had 5 channels each turn. He's getting 1 power dice from the Hurricanum, and yeah, he just dwellers me out of the game. So all I could really do was hide, so the scenario really saved me here. But a victory is a victory. Both of us were really surprised that I won this game because he absolutely, just kicked my butt. But it was a good game, and right now I'm sitting on 2-0. And both my victories have been relatively, they're not massacres in any sense. So I'm still sitting in the middle of the pack, or maybe slightly ahead of the middle of the pack. So my next opponent should still be soft. Yeah. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Bye.